much my whole life because I get in front of people and talk and present, but I never thought to take it to a video level. It's just, you know, when you're a teacher, you're just a frustrated actor anyway.
There you go.
so you know, I got in front of the camera, things worked out great, and I've been doing it ever since.
Wonderful, wonderful. And yeah, the book we've got here is your any size, anywhere edible gardening. No yard, no time, no problem to grow your own food. I like vegetable gardening. That's a lot of what we end up talking about here on this show. I'm taking it that the idea came up out of this is because people kept saying, I don't have any space, or I can't do that because I don't have a yard, I live in an apartment, and it looks like you solved a lot of those problems. Any pointers on just initially out of this?
Right. Well, let me tell you why this book came about. It's because I started growing food myself. You know, I was into this for ornamental aspects first, landscape design, landscape architecture. But when I started growing food myself, you know, we live in a condo. All we have is a rooftop and a balcony, and I got a community plot. But I mean, I don't have the big backyard that you're so used to seeing in the suburbs. So all these techniques that are in the book, I had to test and learn for myself. I mean, I've gone through tons of failures to figure out how to grow tomatoes and pumpkins on rooftops.
Right.
And so I just figured that there was a big market for this because I keep hearing so much about, all my questions on the road are about how to grow tomatoes. When do I want to start my peppers? How do I get okra? How do I grow sweet potatoes in the north? And all these things are different problems that I had to solve in my own gardening, on my rooftop and in my community garden. So it was time for me to put all these techniques into print, and turns out it's been very well received.
Oh, that is great, because that's a little bit of what we have here. We are in the suburban part of Florida, but we also have a lot of condo, townhomes, what do they call them, patio homes, some areas and we have a large senior population too, but they still want to incorporate some of the vegetables into the landscape, and going with containers and things like that a lot of times, fills that need to have that tomato plant, the pepper plant, tucking some okra in with the other plantings in the landscape, because not only are the flowers pretty, but then you also get your okra with it.
Yes. Well, two comments about that. Vegetables can be beautiful plants. They are extremely ornamental if they're grown correctly.
They are.
And there's no reason you can't use them in a flower bed or even a mixed border. There's no reason you can't do that. And second, having a small space to garden in doesn't mean you don't have a big yard. Lots of people just don't want to garden their whole yard anymore. Or maybe they only want, like you said, a couple of things on the patio or the porch. So this book is not just for those who are space challenged. It's also for those who just don't want a large garden, people who are downsizing or just too time crunched to cover a really big garden.
And that happens too. Also with our soils, a lot of people go to containers because of the soils here in Florida being very sandy, low soil moisture retention, the amount of amendments you need to continually put in order to keep a good, healthy soil in our area ends up being as an issue on that.
Yes. I've been down to Largo. I've spent time in Miami, and I'm familiar with you guys' very shallow, kind of sandy soil. So I always feel for people who have to garden there in the ground. It's so much easier to put a raised bed in, bring in some good compost, mix it up, and then you have everything that your veggies need.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise you got to take out the pickaxe, in parts of Florida.
In some of it, yeah, you sure do. I just had a couple of some questions that I had gone through, seeing any of these when I went through the book a little bit that I had for you that I thought some of my listeners might be interested. When you were saying about containers, I saw you had like a 20-inch pot. Is that kind of a good general size of a container that you might put out, and 20 inches? Is it necessarily a deeper or just a wider container that you were looking at, or mostly when you?
So I would say the minimum, if you want to grow good veggies, now herbs are a different story. Herbs can grow in smaller containers.
Right.
But if you want to grow a decent veggie to almost its full size, I'd say maybe 70% of its full size, a 16-inch diameter pot is the minimum you want to go.
Right.
Any smaller than that, and the plant's just going to be dwarfed. It won't produce as much. It just won't perform as well. So 16-inch diameter. Now, the bigger, the better, and that's with most things, but that's definitely true with plants, because the bigger root volume you have, the more roots you're going to have, the more production you're going to have. So,
right.
I mean, but don't go overboard. Only go as big as you can move. You know, I've got some huge 33-inch containers on top of my roof, and I can move them with a hand dolly. But you know, that's as big as I want to go, because anything else I can't move.
Right.
Most of my containers are in the 16-inch size, where I can pick them up and easily move them around if I have to. So I would say that if you want to start out, 16-inch is the minimum. I mean, you can go larger. You can also get the little box kits and all those things that work well. And you know, to the second part of your question, root depth is important, but you only need 6 to 8 inches. So, I mean, you can go deeper, but 6 to 8 inches, and you can grow just about any veggie. It's more the width than it is the depth.
So you could almost even do a whole garden in a children's kiddie pool.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And this year, for the first time, I grew sweet potatoes in what was like a little mini kiddie pool.
Right.
And it turned out fantastic.
Yeah.
Only 6 inches of soil, but about, I'd say, almost 30 inches wide.
Right.
And those sweet potatoes have been just coming off and coming off. So it's not so much the depth. Now, more depth is good for things like okra and tomatoes, which have those really deep roots.
Right.
But, you know, for most of the veggies, your peppers, your cabbages, your broccoli, the beans, all those guys, 6 to 8 inches is fine.
There's plenty of soil. Yeah, I saw in there that you had grown, we have grown sweet potatoes in 5-gallon buckets, and the final result was actually kind of amusing. I don't know if we just allowed them to get too big in those buckets, but when we had to bust the bucket to get it out, it was the size, it was one gigantic misshapen sweet potato that pretty well filled the bottom of a 5-gallon bucket, and it made, I think it was 3 sweet potato pies. Was the amount that was in that, and it took some work to get it peeled, because it was like one sweet potato actually did grow over the other one.
That's what they'll do a lot in containers, because it's such a small, tight space that when they start growing, you know, they bump into each other, and then they start to do a twisty dance with each other.
Right. But carrots, I've done carrots in containers, which are great in doing like that. I've even done some containers with just using perlite, which helps to lighten some of those up, and it becomes like a hydroponic version, and so that's an interesting way to go, too.
Yeah, that's impressive.
You had you didn't really mention any issues with it. Of course, when you're going into like containers or raised beds, you get rid of nematode issues normally because you're bringing in soil.
Exactly.
Here in Florida, we have a big problem with nematodes.
Never use garden soil in containers. Always buy bagged soil. That's just one way to eliminate a lot of pests in general, is growing in containers.
Right.
I mean, especially all those soil-borne diseases, you just won't have them because your container soil will always be sterilized if you buy it in bags.
And buy a good quality.
Yes, let me change that. If you buy a good quality potted soil in bags, yes.
That it's just some of the ones are, you may be able to buy the inexpensive mix, and I don't know if you're the same with me. I like what they call a garden mix, or not necessarily in the big containers, not necessarily a potting soil, but I get one that's like a garden mix that's a lot of compost. There's no actual soil in it except for the compost that it creates on its own, and that offers really good drainage. But something like topsoil and those are just, so I find those to be too heavy.
Topsoil is way too heavy. Compost is great. I do use a lot of potting mix as well. It all depends on what I'm growing. Like if I have a 2 peach trees and a couple of plums and some pears on the rooftop. Now, because those are trees, I do have a little layer of like clay on the very bottom of that. I mean, just simply because they are trees, and I want that moisture holder capacity.
Oh, sure.
But the rest of it is a mixture of compost and potting mix. And when you're talking veggies, that's really all they need. I mean, you don't have to worry about adding anything but either the potting mix or the compost. I prefer mixing them together, because that way you have all the air pockets and the nutrients in the same place.
It gives it a little lighter mix as well. Yeah. You had something on a intercropping. In that, I'm not sure if I was picking that up out of some of the containers or some of your other raised bed styles that you were talking about. Oh, can you do that within? I know you can do it in like a raised bed, but in containers as well.
Yes, I do it in both, and it's actually happening right now on my rooftop. So basically, I'll have my spring crops in, and I'll start the summer crops as they're finishing. And right now, as my tomatoes and peppers and squash and cucumbers are finishing up, I've got the cabbages started in the bottom. I've got little cabbage seedlings coming up. I've got pak choy seedlings and tatsoi and all these other really cool greens that can take cold weather.
Right.
And, those cold Chicago winters, which you guys unfortunately don't have to deal with. So in about maybe a week or two, I will cut down the tomatoes completely, give all the sunlight to the cabbages and the tatsois and other field greens, and let them develop. So basically, intercropping is a way to conserve space and to keep that container productive all the way from the beginning of the season to the end of the season without having to change everything out and start anew. I mean, I'll have maybe 1 or 2 week lag time until I'm harvesting from that container again.
Right. That's a great way to do that. And I saw on the thing, because this is one of the issues we sometimes have, because you've done several other, on the raised bed, you had the 8-inch, I think you were saying with your grandson or your son, tried to keep him busy, and the bed was just done too quickly, but it was just 8-inch built right on top of the ground, not dug down in, but that the 16 inches high actually kept the bunnies from being an issue?
Yes, between 16 and 18 inches, rabbits won't jump over the top.
They can't get over it.
Well, they can do it, but they rarely will because they don't know what they're jumping into.
Okay.
So something that tall will keep them out. 8 inches, they can kind of crawl up on the edge and look over and see that it's safe, and they'll go up in there and get some things. But if you have a lot of problems with rabbits, and my community garden plot is literally crawling with rabbits. In Chicago, we don't have any predators, so we have just rabbits breeding everywhere, in lawns, community gardens, fields, everywhere.
Right.
So I've had to learn how to grow crops with rabbits. And I can tell you now, you don't get any peas unless you've got something that's at least 16, 8 inches tall, for them to grow in.
Right. Yeah, I know. That's one of the biggest things is the beans and the peas. I put them out. They were up last night, and I got up this morning, and they were gone. You
made some rabbits very happy.
Yeah, the bunnies are well fed for that week, and then they replant, and it happens all over again. Is there any? I don't know whether or not you've had any encounterings with squirrels on trying to keep those out of the garden or not.
Squirrels are worst when it comes to ripe fruit. I don't mind their digging around because most of the time, I've got enough plants where they can't damage it.
Right.
But ripe fruit, they have a habit of picking the tomato off and taking a few bites out of it, and then they'll leave it
and dropping it on the ground.
There you go. They'll leave it there somewhere or something like that. So that's the worst thing with squirrels. We actually have a lot of vole problems as well in the north, and voles are these little fat things that look like mice, but they're like a cross between a mouse and a vole. But a mouse and a mole, but they're like mice. They like to eat plants. So we've got to figure out ways to keep them from climbing up and biting tomatoes off. And the thing about all these rodents, the field mice, the voles, the squirrels, is that they will come eat the fruit exactly the day before you're going to pick it. and then they only take a few bites out of it, and then they'll be back the next day to ruin another. Right.
They do their damage. If they would just take one, take it home, and have dinner, we'd be okay.
Yes.
the way we harvest it. With our squirrels here, we have an issue with those a lot in our area, and we have the moles where they just are going through and now they're usually eating insects, but they lift the garden up and that I'm seeing. We've got a call in from one of my listeners. You want to take a call?
Sure.
All righty.
All right. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just want if I want to plant some shrubs like red tops and stuff like that. I just want to know what type of I just want to know what type of fertilizer I can use or cow manure.
Well, you could use either one. Of course, right now, if you're going to plant them now, I would just use the cow manure when you're working the area and wait till spring for the fertilizer.
That's a very good question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's a very good question, and that applies not just for shrubs but for anything now.
Yeah.
For those of us who are coming up on a cold season or a cool season, you know, you don't want to fertilize when the plants are starting to go dormant.
Right.
So that's the worst thing you can do, because because you're wasting money. The fertilizer is going to wash off during the winter rains or the winter snows and be washed down into a river or stream where we don't want it, and it won't be in the garden where you need it.
It won't be taken up by the plant all winter.
Right. So, great advice.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and my producer here just, I don't know whose rooftop garden he just brought up on the internet, but it's a beautiful one on there that he just brought it up on the computer that I turned it around and I can see it here. And that's one, it's got raised beds, it's got trellises for the peas and the cucumbers and all of that. It's a beautiful, actually a very beautiful setup. Even I think there's a greenhouse up on there.
Now, that's fancy.
That is fancy. I believe that looks like a condominium kind of thing, because it's quite large, and several layers, several different heights on there. Oh, we got another call coming in.
Good morning, you're on the air.
Good morning, this is Sonny calling.
Yeah.
You got to be very careful with these rooftop gardens, because a lot of roofs aren't made to carry all that extra weight, especially if you get a super heavy downpour. That water won't drain off the roof that fast. Or if you get a real heavy snow in the winter, if you're in the northern climates, that weight really does a number on the roof. So if you're going to do that, make sure the building and the roof can withstand the extra weight, and basically double it if everything gets wet. And if it's snowed, it stays up there. I'll hang up and listen to your comments. Thank you. Good program.
Thank you.
And you do have another phone call. Good morning, you're on the air. Oops, I guess not. Maybe not. Okay.
Did you have a comment on that, William?
Yes, I did. I mean, he's correct on that. You need to check to make sure that your roof can bear the weight. You know, most people, especially in large cities, you can't add anything to the rooftop unless you have already talked with the building supervisor or, you know, discussed it with the condo association and know the weight loads of it. So you should definitely do that. Secondly, never block the drain. My drain is completely clear by 8 feet on all sides. There's not a pot, not a plant leaf, nothing there. You want to make sure that drain is open, you know, and gets plenty of access, you know, for the water to run smoothly off of it. And outside of that, you know, you really shouldn't have any problems. As long as you have checked with the code to make sure what you're doing is okay with the association and keep your drain clear, you'll be fine.
Right. Yeah, here in Central Florida, I don't think we're going to have too many rooftop gardens unless it's unless someone actually deliberately builds their home in order to be able to do that kind of thing. Just most all of our buildings are not that high. We don't have too many apartment houses, at least not right here in Ocala, Marion County, that are going to get into those kind of issues. But I guess you can even you have to be careful if you happen to be in an apartment that you have a balcony where you're planting, that you don't want to get too big of a container up there of taking up your space and too heavy and things like that.
Don't go crazy on your balcony. I mean, balconies simply have a much less weight load than a rooftop would have. So always keep space for you to move around on the balcony. Don't crowd it in with too many pots. That's the worst thing that can happen to you, is to have your balcony fall off.
Oh yeah. And you don't realize how much that weighs when you pick it up. You know, you pick up a bag at the local garden center of soil, and you pick up 2 or 3 of them. Well, you only picked up 30 or 40, 50 pounds at a time, not realizing that, okay, now you have 150 pounds that's going into those containers, and then you're adding your water and everything else. You had said something about some drainage. Were you talking about like putting like the packing peanuts down in the bottom in order to lighten those up and offer some drainage? That'd be a couple inches, something like that?
I've used the packing peanuts. Since a lot of my containers are used year-round, I just found that they fall down a little bit. You know, they compress a little too quickly for me. So typically what I will use would be lava rocks, is what I started with, but now I'm onto this thing. It's called Better Than Rocks, and it's a filter material. And it was made actually as a filtration device, but it works perfectly in the bottom of pots. And they have this other thing called Upsy Daisy, which is basically a false bottom. So you put it in the pot, maybe halfway through. So you don't need 27 inches of soil or 20 inches of soil. It gives you the amount of soil that you need. So there are things out there that can lighten the load for sure. And besides doing that, I also encourage people, if you're growing veggies, grow them in plastic pots. They make beautiful plastic and high-density resin pots that look like ceramic, so you can still have a beautiful garden, but you cut back on so much weight. That ceramic pot is going to weigh 5 to 6 times more than a plastic pot.
Sure.
Same thing with the terracotta. I mean, even the oak barrels are really, really heavy. So if you can get a plastic pot, you cut down on the weight, which is good for 2 reasons. It reduces your balcony or rooftop weight load, and also it's easier to move around. And one of the big advantages of growing in containers is portability. Maybe I want to feature this pot one day, or maybe I want to move this one to a centerpiece on my picnic table or my barbecue. So having a lighter pot is better.
Yeah, especially if you're going to do any ornamentals within that also. And the plastic pots, they don't have an extensive lifespan like ceramic might be, but you're still going to, the cost of them is much less, and you can change your styles every couple of years, and you can usually find them inexpensive.
And for growing veggies, you know, they give a little bit. You don't have to worry about breaking them. I was growing veggies inside of ceramics, and every time I would, try to dig in one or turn it over, it would chip or crack, and that's a waste of money. With the plastic ones, I can literally turn them upside down, bang them, knock it out.
Right, bang them to knock out that soil and
they're fine.
Yeah. How often do you change out the soils, like completely? Because you figure, even though you are using a commercially prepared mix, and if you're starting your seeds indoors or even buying starts, they're usually done in a sterile medium also, but you still can get disease issues, still can get some pest issues that'll begin to build up in there. Do you change out your soils every couple of years or every other season, or
every 2 to 3 years I'll change out the ones that I grow lots of the peppers, tomatoes, and some of the broccoli clam plants in. I'll change those out. Other ones I don't necessarily change. What I'll do is I'll add like a 2 to 3 inch layer of composted manure on top of it in the fall.
Just freshen them.
Yes, and then let that kind of work itself over. I've got a healthy community of worms, even on my rooftop garden. So they kind of turn the soil and keep it loose for me.
And they keep it fertilized.
And they keep it well fertilized. But to handle disease, what I will do is, if I grow tomatoes in this container this year, next year I'm not growing any nightshade plants. So no peppers, no eggplants, no tomatillos. I'm going to grow squash family plants. And then the year after that, I'll grow bean family plants in it. I'm on a 3-year rotation with all my containers, just to make sure that no fusarium wilts build up in the soil.
Build up a population, right. Sounds a great idea on that, and I see my phone's ringing again.
Good morning, you're on the air.
Hey, good morning. I just wanted to find out about the herbs.
Yes, on herbs.
You put in food. Is this the same thing? It's just like the flowers, but the season.
But say that again. I'm planting herbs. You're wanting to know whether or not you can start some now.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Okay. There's some. We're in a sort of a transitional here in September. You could probably get some started if you've got a good windowsill, so that when it turns cold, you can bring them in.
Okay,
that's what I need to know. Thank you.
And he could also do some of the perennial herbs. I mean, he could try thyme now, oregano, even cilantro will make it through a winter.
Make it through the cooler winters.
Right. So if he's looking to add some herbs now, which I think is a great idea, by the way. I mean, thanks for the call for mentioning herbs.
Yeah.
Herbs are a part of any garden, or should be a part of any garden, vegetable, rose, flower, whatever, because they bring in good guys and they fight off bad guys. So, bringing in herbs is a cool thing, especially those perennial ones right now that can adjust to the climate and will make it through winter easily.
Okay, great. And I see another. We're ringing again.
Good morning. You're on the air.
Yes, good morning to your guest. I believe you're up in the Chicago area. Am I correct?
Yes.
Illinois is the #1 pumpkin growing state in the United States. I know you guys had quite a drought up there this year. What's the status of the pumpkin crop?
The pumpkins are actually doing great. We lost probably the majority of our corn. We lost a good deal of corn. But the pumpkins, they like hot weather. As a matter of fact, the hot weather that we had, it was hot and dry. I mean, hottest it's ever been in Illinois this summer, and dry as it's ever been, hot and dry. So we had fewer bug problems, which are the main problems with pumpkins. So we had fewer bugs, and we had fewer instances of powdery mildew because there was just no moisture anywhere.
Oh.
So right now the pumpkin crops are doing great. You can expect pumpkins to be flooding in all over.
Oh, yeah, I'm starting to see your pumpkins down here already, and they look great.
Yes, and we started growing a lot of different types, too. So don't just look for the jack-o'-lantern. We've got some of the squat cheese pumpkins. Yeah. We're growing a lot of the ghost white pumpkins, the gray pumpkins, the gourds. So, yeah, it's been a banner year for gourds and pumpkins in Illinois.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Super. So that's, I too have seen those pumpkins coming in. It's always one of those crazy things that here it is just, well, now late September, and the stores have been filling full of pumpkins, and the Halloween's on its way.
Right.
But what else was it I was going to get into? Yeah, you were saying with the herbs. I guess you put, well, if you're adding your herbs in within the garden, you're doing the two things, like you said. Bringing in the good guys, you bring in the beneficials, and sometimes the fragrances just of those herbs also helps to repel off some of the bad guys. Also, and so putting those in your containers and such is going to be a benefit.
Yes.
Within those areas too.
Yes, it will be. Like if I grow peppers or tomatoes, I typically either in the container or in the container right next to it will be oregano or thyme. Not only can I use them together in recipes, but just the proximity of it seems to help bring in pollinators and help fight off some of the bad guys.
Right.
And if you go to any rose garden, I was just at the Pat Nixon Rose Garden out in California, and it's a perfect example. The rose gardens are planted, and they have rosemary and oreganos and lavenders all through the garden. Not only does that help unify the garden by having this repetition of same plants and same styles, but once again it fights off the aphids and some of those other things that would love to just come in and ravish the roses.
Right.
And, they're kind of pushed off a bit. I mean, it's not like a force field. It's like a soft barrier,
Yeah, so that's a good way, a soft barrier, where it's encouraging the natural predators to come and stay and make their bring up their populations as well. Mm-hmm. So you get a good balance in there. Trying to think of what else it was I had on here on the edibles. If you were somebody who was going to start something, I usually tell people to plant something you like to eat.
Yep.
Is if you've ever tried to do something, what would you think besides the good old green beans? That's always been a good one to grow with kids as a starter. What do you think is something the simplest way to go for somebody maybe just beginning out, or somebody trying a container gardening on the first time?
Well, you're very much right. Grow what you like to eat. You're more likely to tend it, and you're more likely to enjoy it when you harvest it. And when you're starting out, you just need that little bit of success to make you take the next steps and start doing other things.
Right.
So grow what you like to eat. I would say easy crops like sweet peppers. Everyone likes sweet peppers on a salad. Or if your child likes onions or peas, those are some really easy ones to grow that you're guaranteed to have success with. If it's your first time and you're really not sure about it, you don't want to try any difficult ones. Like growing an heirloom tomato that takes 100 days to ripen is a tough way to go for the first-time gardener, because you have to keep it alive and healthy for those 100 days before they see a crop.
Right.
Rather than that, I would say grow some of the cherry tomatoes. Grow Sun Gold or some of the other tomatoes that you're guaranteed to get a big crop of tomatoes off early. That way you can start seeing the fruits of your reward literally, fruits of your labor literally. So those cherry tomatoes, sweet peppers, things like onions, which are super easy to grow and require almost no care.
Right.
Sweet potatoes. And what's cool about an onion, let me go back to onion. If you have kids with you, they'll get to see the seed or set, whichever one you start with. They'll get to see how small it is, and because it's on the surface, they'll get to see it grow. Every other day, it'll be bigger and bigger and bigger.
Right.
And it's a cool thing for them to see the process. Same as growing with a pea. They'll get to see the flower and see how beautiful it is. Then they'll notice that little small pod come out, so tiny, and it's going to get bigger every day. So please include kids in the process so they can understand the food doesn't come from a truck or from a store.
There you go.
Food comes from the ground.
That's it. And we've got another call.
Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning. have either one of you ever worked with people that are visually impaired in the gardening process? I'll hang up and listen to your answer.
I haven't, but yeah, I know what. I'm not sure how long Lenny's been.
Lenny? Oh, Lenny been blind? Yeah. I don't know either.
But so have you done any work with those who are visually impaired in gardening?
Yes, I have. One of my first jobs working in the industry was at the Department of Environment, and I would install lots of horticulture therapy gardens in different communities, assisted living communities or hospitals, and there are people who are visually impaired. Mm-hmm. What you want to do is you want to make sure that they can have either a comfortable seat, or if they happen to be in a wheelchair or something, that it can easily roll up to it. So what you need is a raised bed, right. Something that's really far off the ground. Hopefully, like I said, if it has to have like a wheelchair access, you can have it so that it's like raised up on the table and the chair can fit under it.
Right.
And then that way they're right there on top of the garden. And if they happen to be blind, you can always use tactile plants. We use a lot of plants that were furry, like lamb's ear for them to touch, or we will use a lot of plants like herbs, because as you're planting or touching or just feeling the herbs, all these scents are going to be released. Right. So I've done sensory gardens before.
But do you know of any websites that are trying to help somebody get into? I mean, I'm not. I should have looked some up. I never thought of the question.
Not on the top of my head, but I would say if you go to the internet, put in horticultural therapy gardens.
Okay.
And then they'll pop up, and then you can also put in sensory gardens to find some of the plants that work best for those other senses besides sight, because there are plants that are very much fragrant.
Right.
There are also plants that make noise in the wind. Like we often would include some types of grasses because they would dry out very early in the summer, and all during the late summer and fall, whenever the breeze blew, they would rattle or make a little noise. So there are lots of plants out there that appeal to other senses besides sight. So yeah, please look for those.
Okay, yeah, that's a great idea on that, because that's you try to you want to grow and you want to be independent on that kind of thing. It's tough, and even some skills to be able to plant. And I would think that if you were going to try to grow, and with the being visually impaired, they say the container, the raised, the high table bed, raised bed is going to work better. And then proper marking, probably starting more with transplants instead of with this, unless you're going with the larger seed items like beans or peas. You could still be able to grow. You just may need to have a little help on trying to find out when they're ripe, or being able to somebody to help you scout out for any pest problems. But I would think you could still garden, and like you said, with herbs where they're very aromatic, and still get some pleasure from those. And I know today I am going to be giving your book away to one of our listeners today, so they're going to get the chance to see what we were talking about. And it does. I always get concerned a lot of times on books that publishers try to get, is because Florida is so much different than anywhere else when it comes to gardening. But your book here does cover a lot that is very relevant in our area on how to start it, how to be, as a good beginning, as a good container beginning, or just as a beginning gardener for vegetables and herbs, and you can take that and transfer it all the way through. So that was been a pretty neat book to go through and enjoy, and I'm pretty sure I know my one of my listeners is going to get quite a bit of enjoyment out of that. You mentioned that Better Than Rocks. Is that something somebody would have to find online? Is that a...
Well, they were available in independent garden centers, and also they're available online. So I'm not sure exactly where they would find that in Central Florida there, but check independent garden centers and also go online.
Right. And I thought of one other way to make some of those larger pots smaller on the inside is you find the inexpensive size that's about a half a size smaller, and you just cut that pot off. Sometimes the black liner pots that you can take and turn over. Okay, yeah, he brought it up here, and it looks like it's a foam piece.
Yes, it's like a mesh.
Right, almost like a gigantic scrubby pad.
Yes.
That's the best way I can describe it. So it's something that's lightweight and showing that they're putting it in, taking up a good 2 to 4 inches in the bottom of the pot.
And the website was betterthanrocks.com.
There you go. Nothing simpler than that. That's what I like. Well, William, I appreciate you coming on today, and I think my listeners really enjoyed it. I think I got one more call in. We'll take one more, and then we'll probably go ahead and let you go for the day.
Good morning. You're on the air.
Morning. Huh?
Maybe not.
Well, look at that.
They ran off because they thought you were leaving. Well, I sure do appreciate it, and appreciate you coming on and letting us have a book that we're going to share out with one of our listeners today.
Well, thank you for having me, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
All right, thank you.
We'll take a little break and be right back.
Kenny's Place Nursery has been helping special adults in our community by giving them an opportunity to engage in meaningful employment while providing us all with an amazing assortment of beautiful flowers and plants for our yards and gardens. On Saturday, October 13th, Ocala and Marion County can say thank you to the folks at Kenny's Place and have a great barbecue lunch at the same time. For just $7, you'll take out a half chicken dinner complete with beans, coleslaw, and a roll. That's Saturday, October 13th from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. at Kenny's Place Nursery. Amazing plants, delicious food, and some beautiful people. So don't miss the barbecue at Kenny's Place Nursery on October 13th. To get to Kenny's Place, just head south out of Ocala and then turn left at the Sheriff's Substation or give them a call at 867-1213 for better directions. That's 867-1213 for Kenny's Place Nursery.
Life's journey has many ups and downs, but you can take comfort in the knowledge that Robert's Funeral Home is here to serve you and your family with loving care and dignity. The Roberts family has been providing their caring services since 1898 and offer traditional, custom, cremation, and veteran services. Pre-made arrangements are also available. Robert's Funeral Homes. Great funeral homes serve great people.
Here's what you may have missed on the John Tesh Radio Show.
For a man, the quality of his sleep from the night before affects how he treats his spouse the next day. For a woman, how she interacts with her spouse during the day affects how she'll sleep that night. Bread and rolls, they happen to be the #1 source of sodium in our diet. Bread and rolls. Too much Facebooking makes you unhappy. The people with the most friends feel depressed by Facebook most often.
Intelligence for your life on the John Tesh Radio Show. Don't miss this stuff.
Stay informed on everything going on in the villages with the Village Spectator newspaper. The Village Spectator is exclusively devoted to the villages with news, commentary, and more. And yes, they have Tom's Picks, a free referral for people who are looking for a company to do work for them. Tom's Picks will refer the company that fits your needs, and all we ask is that you tell them where you heard about them. Call Tom's Picks at 804-1223 and pick up your copy of the Village Spectator today.
Now read Ocala Downtown newspaper online.
All right, 10 minutes before 10 o'clock, let's rejoin Carol Ann Baldwin, and You've Got a Garden. And Carol Ann, I believe you've got a phone call waiting for you. Good morning. You're on the air with Carol Ann Baldwin.
Hi, Carol Ann. I have a cast iron plant inside the house.
Okay.
And it's under it's not exactly a grow light, but I keep a light on over it.
Uh-huh.
I'm having the tips turn brown. And I'm concerned, am I giving it too much water or too little water?
You might be giving it too much light.
I hadn't thought of that.
Cast iron plant does grow in very shaded locations.
Oh, maybe okay.
And I would check the water. You want to you don't want it to dry out, but you don't want it to stay wet.
I know you can neglect those out in the yard, and they'll just flourish.
And they just do fine, right? It may actually be just a little too much light with that and drying out a little too quickly. Even.
Okay, I'll watch that. Next thing, is your person still there?
No, he's not.
Okay, well maybe you can tell me.
I'll try.
I have had experience with the cherry tomatoes not getting totally ripe before I want to pick them. Is it okay to pick them?
A little orange? Oh, yeah.
Will they ripen in the house?
They will. They will. And some of the cherry tomatoes are not necessarily quite as red. You got several different varieties that are out there that are a little bit different shades of red to pink, like with any tomato.
I noticed some of them are long, some of them are a little round. It's really amazing how different all of the what's called cherry tomatoes, really turn out to be. In his book, do you know if he has the dimensions or plans or how much to buy to make a reasonable small raised garden?
He does. I mean, it's like he was saying that anything about a 16 to 20 inch pot is generally large enough to grow. That's usually going to be about one plant. A small children's kiddie pool would make actually a decent-sized garden where you could put several different items in and grow like that, and that way you've got a bottom. You would just need to make some drainage into that, but that would set on a patio or in a.
Well, I really need that because I've had a bunch of hip replacements, and I'm telling you, I've almost had to give up gardening because of the bending over flexes my hip joints too much, and so I was really thinking about what he said, a raised garden might be my answer.
Go in a raised garden, or they say containers, and that way the container is flower pot height. You could even put up some concrete blocks. Yeah, I have some friends that grow all their garden in buckets, which their buckets are on a shelf out in the yard, up on top of upright concrete blocks.
Well, that just goes to show you I wasn't thinking outside the box.
There you go. You were not thinking outside the dirt.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. It was a great show today.
Thank you.
And you have another phone call. Good morning. You're on the air with Carol Ann.
Hey.
Hey.
Carol Ann?
Yes.
This is Ann Hamilton. I'm too close to this Brady. All I want to know is the date of the plant sale that Marion Gardeners are having.
It's going to be October the 6th. I think we've got the flyer. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hang up.
All right.
I do have one thing. I don't know if we got a call coming in, but we've had several people looking for food-grade diatomaceous earth. We always say, we get that call. We hadn't been able to find it. I found it. There's a fella at the flea market, at the Market of Marion, and he has it at the Market of Marion. He's charging about $10 for about trying to think about what that weighed. I want to say about a 2-pound, maybe 3-pound bag of it. You can get it online. He buys it and of course resells it. And it's at earthworkshealth.com. And you could / it human use, because they've also got it more than just pest control, but also for using for people.
Oh, really?
But he does have the food grade. He's at the Market of Marion. I wonder if he'd get mad if I give out his phone number. I doubt it. It's his business card.
Yeah,
so I'll go ahead. His cell number is 254-780-6949, and just, if you mention that you heard it, because I told him I was going to mention it, because I know we've got folks that are always looking for the food grade diatomaceous earth to use as pest control, and which you can use this inside, outside. His is also set to be able to put into food to use on your pets for fleas. He's even on that website. It even has different ways where actually the health benefits, because of the I think the silica content that's within this, and he knows quite a bit of where this one's coming from. He was speaking on that, telling me quite a bit about it.
Interesting. You ready for another one?
Sure.
Good morning. You're on there with Carol Ann.
Yeah, busy morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, excuse me. Last winter in my backyard only, I've noticed I've got, I don't know if it's a little animal or what they call a cinch bug, but they make these little canals, in the grass.
Oh, little tunnels in the grass.
Yeah, and I noticed now the grass is kind of acting up. They must eat the roots or something or whatever.
Is it like finger-sized tunnels? Or
they're not big.
Little finger-sized tunnels.
Yeah, they're
That's
all
a mole
over the
cricket.
place.
That's a mole cricket.
Okay, what do I do to control that?
Pesticide down there.
Mole cricket.
Yeah, they're mole cricket. They're down there, and they do feed on the roots as they go along and tunnel along. You have Bahia grass, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah, that's one of their favorites.
Yeah.
Any one of the ones. I know the bear will work on them. That Bear Complete as a granule. because that's one that works underground pretty well.
Okay, would I apply that now?
Put that down. You still having an issue with them?
Yeah, it's starting to come back again, but it's more noticeable in the wintertime.
Well, you probably see the damage in the wintertime.
Okay.
But they're usually much more active in the summer months.
Okay.
May, June, July, that you see them, and all the way through. But I would go ahead and get them now. You might be able to knock out some in next year's batch as well.
It's a granular?
It's a granular or a liquid. I think the granule is going to be a better way to go.
Now, if I just treat that area and not the rest of the area, would that move them over to a better area?
It may move them around. Try to treat a wide enough area.
Okay.
Come out a couple feet on either side of the spot where you have a big, where the biggest problem is.
Yeah. What are they called again?
Mole crickets.
Mole cricket.
Yeah, they're kind of an ugly-looking bug. They're they get up to about 2-3 inches long.
Yeah.
They've got their front digging feet. Actually, they look.
Yeah.
Like an insect version of a mole.
Are they the ones that are making those little piles?
Probably not. They'll make a tunnel that's raised about the size of your finger.
Exactly, yeah.
Going down through the yard, through the garden.
Yeah.
They'll get in. I've actually had them eat the roots off the bottom of a small pepper plant and pull it all the way down in where there's only 3 or 4 little leaves sticking out of the top.
Yeah. Is there a treatment just for them, or is it for a multi-purpose?
It's a multi-purpose kind of thing, but it's one that you need one that's actually going to work underground so that they don't have to come up out of the ground to be able to get the poison, because they do come up a little bit, but not much.
Do you have to rake it in or just throw it on top?
Put it on top and water it in.
Water it in, okay. And real quick about my viburnum bushes, when's the last time should I fertilize?
Would have been this month.
Okay, so I still got time yet.
Yeah, throw a little on now, get it done before the end of the month. Yeah, that'll work. 10 to 10.
Okay, thank you.
Works. You're welcome.
I know.
And by the way, you can see the computer screen. I turned it toward you. The man you interviewed referred to a rodent called a vole. A vole,
right, which is different than a mole. You can see in the picture, if you look up vole, it does look, like he said, like a cross between a mouse and a mole.
Yeah.
As I guess it does most of its time underground, but has a tail, and where our little moles live underground.
But if I saw that in my yard, I'd say it was a mouse.
I would too. I would too.
It just looks like a mouse to me.
Yeah.
I don't know quite if I understand the difference. But.
Well, because I think they maybe live more of their time underground.
Well, maybe that's what it is. Maybe mice don't do that, huh?
Right, that they make their little houses in other leaf litter and such. Huh. But if we got somebody who really, really wants this book, let's go ahead and I don't think we looked up for trivia.
I didn't.
But that doesn't matter.
I wasn't doing that.
We don't need a trivia question. We can just go ahead and...
All right, so if you would like the book, you need to be the first caller, and Carol Ann will leave it here for you. And
with your name on it.
What's the title?
It's Any Size, Anywhere Edible Gardening.
Any Size, Anywhere Edible Gardening. And if you want to look it up, if you don't win it, you can...
You can look it up. You can get it, I'm sure, at any of the... bookstores. It's CoolSpringsPress.com.
And what's the author's name?
The author's name is William Moss.
Okay. Good morning. You've got the book. Who's this?
Wait, this is Kathy.
Kathy.
All right.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's a great book.
All right. It's waiting for you, Kathy.
All right. Thank you. Don't do it before I get there.
No, okay. All right.
Well, another good show, Carol Ann.
Another one good, yeah.
Always fun to hear from somebody else out there.
It's nice to, I don't like to do too many interviews just because I think too many of them are just not within our area, and so just finding something that's interesting every so often works.
But it was kind of interesting to hear a man talk about living in a city, in an urban area,
and still growing.
And he even rotates his crops every 3 years. I thought that was interesting.
That's a great way.
Yeah. All right, well, good show as always, and it'll be up as a podcast or as a video podcast. I guess. Robin will put it on Facebook in just a few moments, I'm sure.
Super.
All right, thank you, Carol Ann.
All right, thank you, Larry.
All right, we'll take a little break. Carolyn Biddle and Joe Fowler are up next to talk about real estate and how to get the money to buy it. We'll be right back.
Everyone was there. Yoko brought a walrus. There was magic in the air.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Life jackets save lives. Wear it, Florida. Partly sunny today with a shower or two in the area, perhaps an afternoon thunderstorm, high 84 to 88. Partly cloudy tonight with an isolated shower.